Hey listeners, Sean and Chuck here. Before we get started with season 1 finale and take our summer break, we want to acknowledge and say thank you to thousands of website visitors, listeners, and followers who share our love of wine and good deals.
Don't worry, we aren't going far. Over the break, we will be putting out bonus episodes that are completely different from our regular shows. Be sure to join us back here in September when season 2 kicks off. Keep your eyes and ears open for our bonus episodes. We both sincerely thank you all for your support.
Welcome to the season 1 finale of the No Snob Wine podcast. This is our 14th episode of our first season, and we're going to answer your questions about being a sommelier and share some tips for enjoying wine over the summer.
I was going to ask you a question that was a little off base, but do you remember how we found out that we were each into wine? Trip down memory lane.
Do I remember? Oh my goodness. It would have been at, where we worked at the time, of course.
Yep.
Was it at lunch?
It was after work.
Okay. I feel like you're going to tell me and it's going to come flooding back, but I do not remember. I don't remember exactly.
Oh, how dare you?
Wow. Bad friend.
It was after work. We were walking back to the subway station, and you asked me, what are you making for dinner? And I said, what I was making. And I said, but I'm going to open up this Merlot. And I said, did you know that Merlot used to be mostly just a grape grown for blending wines, not really drinking on its own? And you said, yeah, I happen to know that as well. And there bloomed our wine friendship.
That's a great. That definitely sounds like a conversation we would have had back then. That's great. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Merlot, people.
That started a lot of wine conversations. And a website.
Yeah.
And now this podcast.
That's right. And getting invited as a VIP to a few wine events too.
We did attend a few gourmet food and wine shows as media. We got the passes, everything, VIP. Little did they know.
Yeah.
We fooled them.
So Chuck, I'm going to start by asking you a seasonal question, and I don't know if it applies, but I'm going back to episode 2, which was one of my favorite episodes, which was DIY wine. Is it worth it? And does the season matter? Does it matter if you're home brewing wine in the winter or summer? Do you need to adjust anything? Like, you've done this before. What are your thoughts?
So I have done this before. I've never made an amazing batch of wine at home. And I think it's because I've never used actual grapes, freshly pressed, like locally sourced grapes.
Okay.
Or even not locally sourced, but just fresh grapes. I've always gotten pre-pressed juice or used the wine kits where it comes with a bag of juice concentrate.
Yep.
And then you dilute it a bit and you add your yeast and such. Those are not going to make you great wine, like worthy of serving at dinner or giving away, in my opinion. If you do it with fresh grapes, I think you stand a chance. So to answer your question, the season does matter. You want to make your wine during the harvest period using fresh grapes instead of making it with concentrate or a frozen pail of juice.
Interesting. So I was thinking, like, if it's summer or winter, the humidity or temperature in your house, is that irrelevant, really?
The temperature is not irrelevant. Depending on the type of yeast that you use, some yeast will work at a better, larger temperature range. Some will require a more specific temperature range. But if you're seriously brewing, you do want a temperature controlled chamber, a fermentation chamber, people call it. But usually, since you harvest grapes in the fall around here, your basement's kind of cool enough to make the wine in your basement temperature.
So around harvest season, so you get fresh juice, and when it's a little cooler, it's a little better to control the fermentation process.
It's a little easier since fermentation is exothermic. You're brewing at room temperature plus, say, a 5-gallon carboy plus about 8 Fahrenheit, just based off the heat coming off the yeast fermenting.
Okay.
So you want a slightly cooler cellar to ferment in, if possible.
So make DIY your wine in the fall and enjoy it in the summer.
Or later, the more aging, it probably doesn't hurt.
It's DIY wine, but sure.
Yeah, you're not aging it that long anyways. Nice. Good for you if you make something worthy at home. Good for you.
Good for you. Send us a bottle. We're very interested.
So this episode is called Ask a Sommelier. Sean, you're a sommelier. I am not a sommelier. What are the levels of sommelier and the certificates that are available? I think some are a lot easier than others. Which did you get and why did you choose it?
That's a great question, and I'm for our finale. I'm going to bestow upon you an honorary sommelier certification, Chuck.
Oh, it's like knighthood
Yeah,
almost.
I'll break a bottle, tap you on the shoulder with it. The,
Amazing.
I mean, you would have the skills to definitely get the sommelier level one. There's a couple of different ways to go about this. There's a lot of it has to do with what country or state or province that you're in, but definitely countries. There's a couple of internationally recognized certifications. That's the one I happen to have. So I studied at something called the ISG, which most people call it, but it stands for the International Sommelier Guild. And you can do each level requires significant amount of in-class time, practical in-class time and tasting time. And then if you really want to go for the gold, if it as it were, there is a master's. And that takes a lot of study. And I think there might be an apprenticeship component to it. And working at a winery, it's difficult to get. And I have a lot of respect for the people who have it. There's not a lot of them around to be a master sommelier. There are less formal programs. One that comes to mind is called WSET, WSET. You can do it in about a weekend, and you can learn a lot about wine and service, and gives you a really great foundation. And that will actually qualify you to work in some restaurants and some wine retail locations as well. So my particular certification took several months. There was books and quizzes and tastings and work, and it was not all just drinking wine, unfortunately.
So as an ISG sommelier, can you identify wine varietal and year just by looking at it from across the room in a glass?
No, not even
Okay.
close. What's interesting was, so when I wrote my final exam, because there is an exam, there was a bonus question, and the bonus question was a blind tasting, and you had to guess, or I gotta guess, identify, or for being professional, the varietal, the country, and the region. I was able to guess the varietal and the country. I couldn't get the region. And maybe because it was level one, I would consider it easy, air quotes. I'm making air quotes. It was Sauvignon Blanc, and it was from New Zealand. And so you get a very specific profile there, but couldn't get the region.
So how do you learn exactly how to pick out tastes and smells in wine?
How do you learn? You practice, practice, practice. There is sort of almost a standard set of wine words and flavors, sort of like a primary and secondary ones. So you practice your primary ones, and then you just have to taste wines that have secondary ones. So like a secondary one, sometimes a secondary one I know you're really good at picking out is like tobacco, or sometimes gasoline, like an oiliness to it,
Like a petrol,
yeah,
yeah.
like a petrol, yeah. And I know you're really good at getting that one. Secondary one is also like minerality, which you're very good at, and that's considered one of the hardest ones to identify for sommelier.
Okay.
But the primaries that you learn, it's all the fruit. It's the berries and the fruit
Mm-hmm.
and the oak and the smoke. And, those are sort of the basics. And then you get into the tobaccos and the leathers and the forests and the greenery and the minerals.
Yeah, so something I use that helped me train was unofficially train was something called a flavor wheel
Yeah.
or aroma wheel
Mm-hmm.
that you can look up online, listeners, and print it out for yourself. And the flavors go from general categories, and then it's broken down to a second layer and then a third layer. So
Yeah.
can you give an example of one of those categories that's get
Yeah.
broken down further, like red berries, for instance?
Yeah. The third level we don't use very much. So nothing comes to mind. But yeah, you'll say like at the first level, like it smells like berries or jam, right? And you can sort of pick that out. And then you can, in the second level, you're starting to pick out things like, oh, it's strawberry jam or whatever. You're just getting more specific. And then in the third level, I think, the minerals show up and the grass and stuff like that. So it just goes like that. If you're ever if you're looking for that online, also if you like Scotch, find the Scotch tasting flavor wheel. It's really, really interesting. It's not as thorough as the wine because Scotch doesn't have as many flavor profiles, but it's really interesting. It kind of has like apples and hay and honey, and it's quite interesting. I did a guided Scotch tasting class with some people, and they really found it useful.
Yeah, I think it's really useful for training on tasting anything, probably beer, scotch, wine.
Yeah, for sure. Here's one for you. One of the things I think we consume a lot more wine in the summer, at least I do, except for around the holiday period in December, January. If people were going to use the summer as an opportunity to explore some Italian wines, can you tell us two that you would recommend trying, maybe varietals to get acquainted with Italian wine? And it's good for summer. So it's a double question.
For Italian summer wines, I could recommend Prosecco, which is a sparkling white, and another white that's a little harder to find, but it's not sparkling. It's called Verdicchio, and that's very nice on the drier side of white.
Those are great suggestions. I think because we have so much sparkling wine around the holidays, I don't think know that, and we tell people drink it all the time. It's good all the time, but what a
Right?
smart summer drink. And you could throw some frozen berries in or a slice of frozen peach in to keep it
Yeah,
cool.
definitely. Yep.
That's a great idea. And Verdecchio is a lovely white wine from Italy.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great suggestion.
So going wine shopping with a sommelier is sort of like going fashion shopping with Giorgio Armani himself, right?
Oh, that's a high
What's
bar. Okay.
That's right. What stuff is worth spending extra on, and what should I try but probably haven't?
What's worth spending extra money on? Oh, wow. That's a tough question. I mean, because of nosnobwine.com, we don't spend over $20 very often. Are you asking if you want to, blow the bank and go past $20?
Feeling a little generous, feeling a little richer today. Maybe I have 3 or 4 20s in my wallet that's burning
Ooh,
a hole.
in the $60 to $80 range. Okay. Um, so my bias is going to show here, but it's because of the price range. Because everybody knows I like California. I mean, when you get into the $60 to $80 range, your California really opens up to some amazing wines. Yeah, so around $30, you can get lots of good wine. In the 60s and to 80s, Napa Valley, you're gonna get some stellar wines. They're going to be so big. They're going to be bigger than if you've never done it before. They're going to be bigger than probably anything you've ever had. Almost overwhelming. And then in the closer to the $60 point, I like the Amarones from Italy. Love those. Can't get enough of those. Now, there's some really good ones around $45, but you've had a couple of Amarones in the $50 to $60 range. Would you say it's
One that
worth
you
it?
can, yeah, one that you can find pretty easily is one called Massey or by Massey. It's $55 here in Ontario, and very rich, full body of a red as you can find. It's made with dried grape skins, so it has a really deep flavor, rich. It's lovely.
And one of the things I like about that, so guys, listeners, guys, gals, a lot of wine is priced because of the marketing, if you will, like what they can charge for it. No, it's special and there's not a lot made, and we can do a whole episode about how they price wine. But when you talk about Amarone, like what Chuck said, is they dry the grapes a bit out in the sun to concentrate the flavor so that you lose juice. So a lot of what you're paying for an Amarone is the smaller yield for a higher quality wine. So you're not just paying for a label; you're getting a product that's harder to make.
Much harder to make, and takes longer to make, I think.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, that's Can I change my answer to buy an Amarone because you're going to get your money's worth?
Yeah, that's a good call. But California cabs really do open up if you spend more than, $20 on them.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah,
That's correct.
there's lots of them to choose from too.
So, question for you. Since episode 3, when we talked about giving wine as a gift, my guests have been killing it. I mean, they've been bringing under 20s, just weird and wonderful stuff. I love it. So much fun. But this summer, if you are going to a barbecue, Chuck, what would you reach for as a gift to take to that barbecue?
We're keeping it under the 20, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So we both tried the Massey organic red and white blends.
Oh, yeah.
Those were really great,
Whew.
especially for the summer.
Killer. The white, I like that because that white will stand up to barbecue, like to big flavors.
You could have that at a barbecue, sure,
Yeah.
as a white, 100%.
And that red will go with a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, it's not too heavy. It's right in the middle, light enough for a summer day, but you can also have it with barbecue, I think.
How about, now this is hard to find, but what about Lambrusco? You want to get fancy? Maybe go a hair over $20?
I have a Lambrusco that I still have to taste, actually. That's under $20. Lambrusco is an Italian wine that has a little bit of carbonation to it.
Very summery.
Yeah, we got to try that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right.
What about you? What do you think?
Well, for the white, I couldn't disagree with you. That was my summer sipper, the Massey, the Fresco de Massey Bianco. Love it. I've had several bottles of it since reviewing it, and it has not let me down. On a red, so if you go to the website, I think, I reviewed the Carnivore wine. It's a great wine. It stands up really well. It's going to please everybody. So, if you're going to barbecue, there's going to be lots of different flavors, maybe some, vinegary dishes potentially. So like a bottle of Carnivore would be good, or the white Massey.
You also put on your top list that white Portugal blend. That's a really good one to bring.
It is
crowd pleaser.
Yeah, lighter, much lighter. So if you're kind of into a sort of a summery hors d'oeuvre, snack session, that's a good one. Yeah, but if you're pulling ribs off the barbecue, that one's going to have a tough time. But
okay,
great for salads and snacks and hors d'oeuvres and appies. Yeah.
When you're blind tasting a wine, what's the hardest part to identify? The varietal, the country, the vintage, if it's red or white? Do you have a process for something like that?
Oh, man. So there's these tasting glasses that are black glass. I've never tried out of these black glasses, but I have read articles and heard stories of sommeliers getting messed up and like identifying whites as reds and reds as whites.
I've heard of that too. It sounds unbelievable.
Yeah, I haven't tried it. I'm almost nervous to put myself into that situation.
We should definitely do it live on the air.
Oh, yeah. What could go wrong?
Yeah,
sounds great. All right, bonus episode. Is it a bonus? Maybe it's a regular episode. Maybe it's the season, the first episode of season 2. Maybe we could kick off with that, destroy my credibility, and lose all our listeners for the rest of the season.
Well, maybe I'll add some of my homemade wine into that tasting session, and we'll really see
what I'm made of.
Yeah,
you see if I'm giving back my certification.
I'm gonna have to tear that certificate up, sir.
Sir, if you could just hand me that. So yeah, if you can see the color, obviously you just almost cut it in half of what you're thinking it is. Mm-hmm. The easiest way for varietal is if so you probably at home you really like cabs, or you really like merlots, or like there's something you probably really like, and there's something about it that you really like, and so cabs have sort of a distinctive flavor. So it's going to be currant or black cherry, or maybe more of a raspberry, right? And then you get into merlots, you're going to get sort of softer fruits and stuff. It's tough. Like they kind of have a signature flavor. And then, when we score wines on nosnobwine.com, like the first 3 points are almost is whether or not the wine is correct. So if it's kind of weird, like if something, if I taste it and it's kind of go, no, this doesn't make sense, you can get into really tricky situation. The country is, again, it's a tell. So the wine will have a tell. So like when I said earlier that in my sommelier exam, I knew the Sauvignon Blanc was from New Zealand. So they have a tell, which is what they call civet. And this is a nice way of saying cat pee. And it was really, really pronounced. I knew it was New Zealand. So different countries will have sort of a tell if you've tried enough from all the countries.
That's true, actually. Yeah, you can drink a red sometimes and say that's really Spanish or Italian or French. Yeah,
I like that you picked Spanish because they're, to me, Spain and Argentina. I don't know if because they're so hot, you can pick, like for me, a mile away.
Right.
Yeah. Italian probably because they tend to be a little more austere and old school.
A little rustic sometimes.
Yeah. But how about, could you pick out an Ontario Cabernet Sauvignon versus French Cabernet Sauvignon?
Probably, and the tell I would look for is the type of oak they're using.
See? Honorary sommelier.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, that's true. Yeah.
For sure.
French oak that's not been used a ton, so that you're going to get a cleaner oak flavor. And then here you're going to get a bit of a smokier, muddier oak flavor. It's subtle, but you are 100% correct.
Yeah. It is there, yeah.
Yep. Chuck, summer, wine, sangria, yay or nay?
Nay. I don't like it.
That was quick.
Yeah.
Just no.
I just don't like it.
If you were forced, okay, you went to a party, there was nothing else to drink. There was white sangria and there was a red.
I'd take the white.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
He has preferences.
Yes, sir. The red, I just don't want extra stuff added to it.
Yeah.
The white, I can see it as more of a cocktail, refreshing drink.
Yeah. So
what about you?
Can we talk? Let's just talk about sangria for a moment. And
Sure.
My biggest issue with sangria is people seem, for some reason, to start with sweet wine.
Okay.
Why do you start with sweet wine when you're dumping in? I mean, it depends on your recipe, but ginger ale or Sprite or 7-Up, and some people, I've seen some with apple juice and some with orange juice, which is bizarre. But anyways, you're putting fruit juice in or pop of some kind. And then when you put that sweet wine in, it's too sweet.
Doesn't make sense, right?
It's way too sweet.
Okay.
And then, sorry, I'm not off my soapbox just yet. And then I think people use an opportunity to buy the cheapest wine they can find, right? Because I'm just going to mess it up with all these other things. Stop that. Just stop that. Because you can taste it. Okay, you're not putting $20 bottles of wine in sangria. 100%, guys. Go to the website, filter on about the $10 range, something 4 stars. Make your sangria out of that.
That's good advice. If you're going to drink sangria, I guess.
Yeah. You can look down your nose at us sangria drinkers. That's fine.
I'll look it right down back at them. Disgusting. So, Sean, what are some lesser known types of wines, or we call them varietals, that people should try out?
Okay. This is our last question, right?
Last question for the song.
It's a good one because it goes, I'm gonna put a summer spin on it too. So first of all, on the red, I know this is not like a rare wine, and we've talked about it a bit, but I can't say it enough to our listeners. Try Malbec. Try all sorts of Malbec from wherever you can get it. It's not as complicated as Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's just as good. It goes with way more food, in my opinion, than just like a Cab or Zinfandel. It comes in different weights. So there's some sort of medium to sort of heavy. Love Malbec. Love it, love it, love it. And you can find it. It's not like, if I said Petit Verdot or something, like good luck. It's really hard to find. Malbec's everywhere. It's just not something people reach for. When it comes to white, I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I'm going to talk about it in the wine I'm reviewing today, is Chenin Blanc. Highly underrated, delicious, Chardonnay competitor in my mind. Rarely, if never, almost never oaked. It can be tropical. It's bright. It's full-bodied. It's delicious. It's typically cheap. Like you can get it from South Africa for a good Chenin Blanc for $9, $10, $11. Really good.
That's good value.
Yeah. I don't know why it doesn't have a great reputation or it's not grown a lot, but the review we'll be doing in a minute had Chenin Blanc in it. It was like $8. It's a great wine. Fine Chenin Blanc.
Good suggestions.
Yeah. So that's that for season 1. I hope everybody enjoys their summer. I hope you have a good summer.
You too. I think we'll see each other and record some fun episodes and put them up.
Yeah, I think there's something I remember about sabering open bottles of sparkling wine. That could happen. So we'll see.
It could happen. It's not a good idea, but it could happen.
I'll bring you goggles. Relax. All right. Have a good summer.
So, Sean, you've picked a Chenin Blanc today for your review. Can you tell us a little about it?
Sure. So, yeah, I tried the Fusion Chenin Blanc Chardonnay blend. It's from Argentina, and I was really happy with it. It's under $10, which is great. Chenin is one of my favorite grapes. It's not very popular. It can be a little hard to find. It's in, of course, the link is in the show notes. It's spelled Chenin Blanc, Blanc. And this particular one was blended with Chardonnay. It was light and bright, like very thirst quenching. I almost gave it 5 stars. It missed a touch of depth. Guys, you're not going to miss it for under $10. I was being very picky when I was giving it the stars, but it was amazing. Fusion Chenin Blanc Chardonnay from Argentina, $8.80, 4 out of 5 stars. So, Chuck, I understand for your wine this episode, you have something a little more mainstream, but it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, so I got a Wolf Blass wine. This winemaker was really popular, especially a handful of years ago, where everyone was bringing this wine to everything, and it's okay. You can find a more interesting Cabernet Sauvignon for $17, but you do get the notes of dark plum, blackberry, and oak, which you'd expect from a Cabernet Sauvignon. It's popular. It's available if you don't know what to get and you like Cabernet Sauvignon. This one for $17, it's okay. I wouldn't avoid it, but I think you can find something a little more interesting. Search our website for Cabernet Sauvignons, 4 stars and up, maybe even 3 stars and up. You'll find a bunch to try. If you're a regular buyer of Wolf Blass, reach out a little bit. So that was Wolf Blass Yellow Label Cabernet Sauvignon 2020, $16.95, 3 out of 5 stars.
So it's a moderate, really nice steakhouse we ended up at. So they had a Camus, but it wasn't the Camus that you would know. It's something that they make at a different, vineyard called Susun. And I was excited because I was like, hey, I've never had anything other than the flagship Camus. And as we've discussed, I never reveal I'm a sommelier. And the sommelier, I asked the waiter a couple of questions. I was like, because it's supposed to be, and I was thinking of you because it's Petit Syrah. Oh. And that's why I was excited. And I asked the waitress, I was like, is it 100% Petit Syrah or is there something else in it? And she didn't know, so she's like, I'll get the sommelier. Like, oh, Christ. An attitude on this asshole. Like,
yeah, right.
Just unbelievable. Just, what a snob.
Like what? What'd he do?
Just like every question was an imposition, and it was it was retailing for about $90. It was one of their less expensive bottles of wine, and he could tell. He was clearly unimpressed that I was interested in this particular bottle. And I said, where we're from, I can't get this. I've never seen this so soon, and it's Petit Syrah, and there's not a ton of it. And he nearly rolled his eyes, just like, oh. And then walked away. I was like, and the guy I was with, he almost, he didn't say anything. He's like, you're the professional to me. And I was like, no, don't. I'm not having a dick out contest with this jackass.
He must, that's not good.
No, you're a fucking B-rated steakhouse in Orlando. Get over yourself.
Right.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts, as it helps other people find us.
Yeah, tell your friends about the podcast. We know they drink wine too.
For more information on any of the wines we discussed, go to nosnobwine.com or check the show notes for links.